Welcome back to the MedPod. Ready for another deep dive?
Oh,
Last time we just kind of dipped our toes into the vast ocean of biophysics.
right.
But this time we're strapping on our scuba gear
Yeah.
and plunging right into
Yeah.
some of the most fundamental concepts.
Absolutely.
The kind that'll not only make you ace those biophysics exams,
Sure.
but will also change how you see the human body.
That's right. We're talking about the very building blocks of life atoms
Okay.
and the forces that govern them.
So first up, atoms.
Yeah.
Everyone knows they're tiny.
Right.
But why should a future doctor care about something so small?
Well, imagine trying to understand a complex machine like the human body
Right.
without knowing what the gears and cogs are made of.
Uh-huh.
Atoms are those fundamental components.
Okay.
Understanding their structure is crucial because it dictates how they interact,
Okay.
form molecules, and ultimately drive all those biological processes you'll be studying.
So it's not just about memorizing some abstract model for a test.
Not at all. Take medications, for example. How a drug works
Right.
depends on its molecular structure and how it interacts with specific targets in the body, which ultimately boils down to interactions at the atomic level.
Okay. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here, but how did we even figure out what an atom looks like?
It's been a fascinating journey of scientific discovery,
Oh,
full of surprises and overturned theories.
wow.
Early models, like the plum pudding model,
Right.
imagined electrons embedded in a positively charged pudding.
Okay.
But then came Rutherford's famous gold foil experiment.
Wait, the one where they shot particles at gold?
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that from high school.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory. What was the big deal about it?
It completely revolutionized our understanding of the atom.
Really?
Rutherford expected the particles to pass straight through the gold foil, instead some bounce back.
Wow.
This meant they'd hit something incredibly dense and positively charged,
Okay.
the nucleus.
So no more plum pudding. Enter the nuclear atom, a dense core with electrons buzzing around it.
Exactly.
Okay.
But there was still a problem.
Ah.
This model couldn't explain why those electrons didn't just spiral into the nucleus,
Uh-huh.
or why atoms emit light in specific colors, not a continuous spectrum.
So another mystery to solve.
Exactly.
Enter Niels Bohr and his quantized energy levels.
Yes.
He said electrons can only exist in specific energy levels,
Yeah.
like rungs on a ladder.
Uh-huh.
They can jump between levels,
Yeah.
but never exist in between.
Precisely. And those jumps, those transitions between energy levels are what give rise to those specific colors of light we see.
Oh, wow.
This concept is actually the basis for some crucial medical techniques like spectroscopy.
Spectroscopy.
Yes.
Like analyzing blood samples to identify different substances.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
By analyzing the light absorbed or emitted by a sample, we can identify its components. It's like a molecular fingerprint.
Wow. I never realized something as abstract as electron energy levels could be so clinically relevant.
Yeah.
So what confirmed Bohr's model?
Well,
Did they actually see electrons jumping between those rungs?
not directly, but the Frank-Hertz experiment provided strong evidence.
Okay.
They bombarded atoms with electrons and found that only specific amounts of energy could be absorbed, corresponding to those quantized energy levels.
Wow.
It was like giving the electrons just enough energy to climb to the next rung, but no more.
So a big win for Bohr. But was his model the end of the story?
Not quite.
Oh.
It was a huge leap forward.
Okay.
But further experiments revealed even stranger behavior.
Oh, really?
We're talking about the mind-boggling concept of wave-particle duality.
Okay, now things are getting interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard that term before, wave-particle duality.
Yeah.
But honestly, it sounds a bit like science fiction.
It might sound strange.
Yeah.
But it's one of the most fundamental principles in physics
Okay.
and has profound implications for understanding biological systems.
Right.
We traditionally think of light as a wave, right? It has properties like wavelength and frequency, and it can bend around obstacles like water waves.
Right, like X-rays, which we use all the time in medicine.
Yeah.
They're a type of electromagnetic wave, so that makes sense.
Exactly.
But what about the particle part?
That's where things get really wild.
Okay.
There were experiments like the famous double-slit experiment
Right.
that showed light also behaves like a stream of particles,
Okay.
photons. It's as if light has a split personality.
Wait, so light can be both a wave and a particle.
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
It's one of those things that challenges our everyday intuition,
Yeah.
but at the subatomic level, things work differently.
Oh.
And it's not just light.
Oh.
Even matter, like electrons can exhibit wave-like properties.
You're telling me that the stuff that makes up everything,
Yeah.
even us,
Yes,
can act like a wave.
it's true. And there's experimental evidence to back it up.
Okay.
The electron diffraction. When you fire a beam of electrons at a crystal, you get a diffraction pattern similar to what you see with light waves.
Okay, I'm officially mind blown.
Yeah.
Light and electrons.
Right.
They're not just simple little balls or waves. They're both.
They are both.
But how does this duality even play into biophysics or medicine for that matter?
In countless ways.
Really?
Understanding wave-particle duality is crucial for techniques like fluorescence microscopy,
Okay.
which allows us to visualize biological molecules with incredible detail.
Wow.
It also helps us understand how radiation,
Yeah.
which is also part of the electromagnetic spectrum,
Right.
affects biological systems.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connections here. We've
Yeah.
gone from the structure of the atom
Right.
to this mind-bending duality.
Uh-huh.
So where do we go from here?
Well,
Even deeper into the rabbit hole.
you bet.
Yeah.
Now we're going to dive into the quantum mechanical model of the atom,
Okay.
where we'll see those electron orbits in a whole new light, or rather a fuzzy cloud of probability.
Is he? Yeah. Sounds intriguing.
Mm.
Quantum mechanics, here we come.
All right, remember those electron orbits we talked about with the Bohr model? Those neat little paths around the nucleus?
Yeah, like planets orbiting the sun.
Right.
Easy to picture.
Well, it turns out that's not quite the whole story.
Oh.
Quantum mechanics throws a bit of a wrench into that picture.
Okay.
It tells us that we can't actually pinpoint the exact location of an electron at any given moment.
Hold on. So electrons aren't actually whizzing around the nucleus
Right.
in those perfect orbits.
Yeah.
What are they doing then, just sort of hanging out somewhere in the atom?
Not just hanging out randomly,
Yeah.
but definitely not in those well-defined paths.
Right.
Instead of talking about specific orbits,
Yeah.
we talk about orbitals.
Orbitals.
Yes.
So what's the difference?
Think of an orbital as a region in space where an electron is most likely to be found.
Okay.
It's not a precise path,
Uh-huh.
but more like a 3D map of probabilities.
Yeah.
If you could take a snapshot of an electron in an orbital,
Right.
it would be a blurry cloud, not a sharp point.
Okay, so it's like a heat map showing where the electron spends most of its time.
Exactly. And these orbitals come in different shapes,
Oh.
designated as SPD and F orbitals,
Okay.
each with its own unique characteristics.
Okay, so we've got these different shapes and probabilities, but how do electrons choose which orbital to hang out in?
Right.
Is there some kind of system,
Yeah.
like assigned seating in an atom?
That's where quantum numbers come in.
Okay.
Each electron in an atom has a unique set of quantum numbers,
Uh-huh.
kind of like its own personal ID code.
So what information is encoded in this electron ID code?
Right.
What do these quantum numbers actually tell us?
Each quantum number describes a specific property of the electron and its orbital.
Okay.
For example, one quantum number tells you the energy level of the electron,
Okay.
another describes the shape of the orbital, and so on.
Yeah.
It's like having an address that tells you not just the street, but also the floor and apartment number.
And why should a future doctor care about these electron addresses?
Yeah.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around why these fuzzy orbitals are relevant to medicine.
Well, imagine trying to design a drug
Right.
without knowing anything about the shapes and properties of the molecules involved.
Uh-huh.
The interactions between drugs and their targets in the body
Right.
depend on how their electron clouds interact, how they attract or repel each other.
Oh, I see. So by understanding these orbitals,
Exactly.
we can start to predict how molecules will behave
Yes,
and how they might interact with each other.
exactly. It's all about understanding those interactions at the most fundamental level.
Okay.
And it goes beyond drug design.
Really?
The shapes of molecules dictated by these orbitals influence everything from protein folding to how enzymes catalyze reactions.
This is blowing my mind. We're going from these abstract fuzzy orbitals to understanding the very processes that make life possible.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it gets even more fascinating when we consider how these atomic orbitals combine to form molecular orbitals.
Molecular orbitals. Okay, let's dive into that. How do we go from the orbitals of individual atoms to the orbitals of an entire molecule?
When atoms bond together to form molecules, their atomic orbitals overlap.
Okay.
This creates new orbitals that extend over the entire molecule.
Uh-huh.
Those are molecular orbitals.
So it's like those individual electron clouds are merging
Yes,
to form a bigger, more complex cloud that encompasses the whole molecule.
precisely. And the way those atomic orbitals overlap determines the types of bonds that form between atoms.
Okay.
You've probably heard of sigma bonds and pi bonds, right?
Vaguely.
Oh.
But remind me, what's the difference and why does it matter?
Sigma bonds are formed by a direct head-on overlap of atomic orbitals,
Well,
while pi bonds are formed by a side-to-side overlap.
uh-huh.
These different types of bonds have different strengths and geometries,
Right.
which influences the overall shape and stability of the molecule.
So are you saying that the shape of a molecule
Yes.
determined by these sigma and pi bonds
Exactly.
can actually affect how it functions in the body?
Absolutely. The shape of a molecule is crucial for its function.
Wow.
Take enzymes, for example. Their active sites, where they bind to specific molecules to catalyze reactions,
Okay.
have very precise shapes determined by the arrangement of those sigma and pi bonds.
Wow. It's amazing how these tiny details at the atomic level can have such a huge impact on biological processes.
It is.
But I have a question. We've been talking about light and electrons as both waves and particles.
Right.
How does that play into this picture of orbitals and molecular bonds?
That's a great question. Wave-particle duality actually helps us understand the behavior of electrons within those orbitals.
Okay.
Remember, we can't know the exact position of an electron,
Right.
only the probability of finding it in a certain region.
Right. That fuzzy cloud idea.
Exactly.
So how does wave-particle duality fit in?
Well, the wave-like nature of electrons helps explain why they're spread out within those orbitals.
Oh.
Instead of being pinpointed to a specific location, it's like those waves are filling the space of the orbital.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like the electron is smeared out as a wave within that orbital.
Right.
But how do we actually observe this wave-like behavior of electrons in a molecule?
One way is through a technique called spectroscopy.
Okay.
By shining light on a molecule and analyzing which wavelengths are absorbed, we can actually get information about the energy levels of those electrons in their molecular orbitals.
So it's like we're probing those molecular orbitals with light and seeing how the electrons respond.
Exactly. And this type of analysis is incredibly useful in fields like pharmacology.
Yeah.
By understanding the electronic structure of a drug molecule, we can get insights into how it might interact with its target in the body.
Wow. It's amazing how these seemingly abstract concepts from quantum mechanics have such practical implications for medicine.
I know, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how understanding the fundamentals can really change the way we think about the human body.
That's the beauty of biophysics. It bridges the gap between the microscopic world of atoms and the macroscopic world of living organisms.
This is fascinating stuff. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the structure of atoms
Yeah.
to the mind-bending world of wave-particle duality and those fuzzy electron clouds.
Uh-huh.
I'm eager to hear more about how these principles are applied in medical technologies,
Yeah.
especially lasers.
Okay.
Aren't they based on these same ideas about electrons and energy levels?
You're absolutely right. Lasers are a perfect example of how understanding these fundamental concepts can lead to incredible technological advancements with direct applications in medicine.
Okay.
Let's delve into that next.
All right, let's talk lasers. They seem so futuristic,
Yeah.
but they're used all the time in medicine.
Right.
I'm ready to understand the science behind this magical beam of light.
Lasers are indeed a marvel of modern science, and their magic, as you call it, lies in the way they harness the very principles we've been discussing,
Okay.
energy levels, and the interaction of light with matter.
So remind me, how do those energy levels play into lasers? We've talked about electrons jumping between energy levels in an atom.
Yeah,
Is that connected to how lasers work?
absolutely. You see, in a normal light source,
Okay.
like a light bulb,
Right.
light is emitted spontaneously in all directions and at different wavelengths,
Uh-huh.
creating a jumble of photons, but in a laser light, emission is stimulated and coherent.
Okay, back up for a second. What does stimulated and coherent actually mean in the context of light?
Imagine you have a bunch of atoms,
Okay.
all excited and ready to release their energy as light.
Right.
In spontaneous emission,
Uh-huh.
each atom just releases its photon randomly,
Okay.
like a crowd of people clapping out of sync.
So chaotic and unorganized?
Yes.
Like a jumble of photons going every which way?
Right.
That makes sense for a regular light bulb.
Exactly. But in stimulated emission,
Okay.
a passing photon can actually trigger an excited atom to release its photon. And here's the key: that emitted photon is identical to the one that triggered it,
Wow.
traveling in the same direction and with the same wavelength.
So instead of a random burst of applause,
Right.
we get a perfectly synchronized wave of clapping.
Exactly.
It's like a coordinated dance of photons.
That's a great analogy. This synchronized light is what gives lasers their unique properties.
Okay.
They're highly focused, incredibly intense, and monochromatic,
Uh-huh.
meaning they consist of a single color or wavelength.
Uh-huh. So that's why laser pointers have that distinct color and can be so bright.
Exactly.
But how do we actually get those atoms excited in the first place?
We use a process called population inversion,
Yeah.
where we pump energy into the system
Yeah.
to get more atoms into an excited state than in their ground state.
Okay.
It's like giving those atoms a jolt of energy so they're ready to release photons.
Okay, so we've got our excited atoms, we've
Right.
got stimulated emission,
Yeah.
and we got coherent light. What's the final step in creating that laser beam?
We need a laser cavity or oscillator.
Okay.
Think of it as a chamber with mirrors on either end.
Mm-hmm.
The excited atoms release photons,
Right.
and these photons bounce back and forth between the mirrors,
Yeah.
triggering even more stimulated emission as they go.
So those photons are basically trapped and multiplying within that chamber,
Yeah,
building up intensity with each bounce.
exactly. It's a chain reaction of photon creation, and when those photons finally escape through one of the mirrors,
Uh-huh.
they form that focused laser beam.
Okay, that's all starting to click now. We're taking those abstract principles we've been discussing and tuning them into a tangible tool.
Right.
But how did we go from this physics concept to actual applications in medicine?
Lasers have revolutionized countless medical fields.
Wow.
In ophthalmology, they're used for LASIK surgery to correct vision. Dermatologists use them to remove tattoos and treat various skin conditions.
Right.
And of course, surgeons use lasers for precise cutting and cauterization during surgery.
So it's not just about the intensity, it's also about the precision of lasers that makes them so valuable.
Precisely. Because laser light is so focused and coherent, it can be directed with incredible accuracy,
Wow.
minimizing damage to surrounding tissue.
This is incredible. It's like those sci-fi movies where they use lasers to perform intricate surgeries. But it's not sci-fi anymore.
Right.
It's reality thanks to our understanding of these fundamental physics concepts.
Exactly.
And it's not just surgery. Lasers are being used in diagnostics as well.
That's right.
For instance, certain types of microscopy rely on lasers to excite fluorescent molecules, allowing us to visualize biological structures with incredible detail.
It's remarkable.
Wow, lasers truly are a versatile tool in medicine.
They are.
And it all stems from those energy levels and light-matter interactions we've been discussing.
Yeah.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I'm finally starting to grasp how those tiny atoms and their quirky behavior can have such profound implications in the macroscopic world of medicine.
It's a testament to the interconnectedness of science, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And for our listeners out there, future doctors, and anyone with a curious mind,
Yes.
I hope this deep dive has inspired you to keep exploring the world around us.
Yeah.
Because who knows what incredible discoveries await when we delve into the fundamentals of science.
That's right.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.